South Africa's political stage is once again filled with tension and debate, this time surrounding the National Dialogue Convention held at the University of South Africa. The gathering was meant to bring together politicians, civil society organizations, labor leaders, and faith-based representatives to deliberate on pressing issues of governance, unity, and economic renewal. But instead of a moment of consensus and hope, it has been overshadowed by the absence of former President Thabo Mbeki, who announced that he would not attend. His boycott has sparked questions about the credibility of the dialogue and the deeper rifts within the political sphere. The response from the African National Congress, and especially from its national chairperson Gwede Mantashe, has added further weight to this unfolding story. Mbeki's decision was communicated through his foundation in a letter dated August 12, 2025. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation criticized the process as rushed, poorly structured, and inconsistent with earlier commitments made to stakeholders. They described what they saw as misrepresentation of the purpose and program of the dialogue, raising concerns that the event risked becoming a political spectacle rather than a genuine forum for progress. To Mbeki and those who support his view, credibility and process matter deeply. For them, skipping the event was not an act of disengagement, but rather a principled stand against what they believe is a flawed attempt at dialogue. For others, however, Mbeki's absence looks like an unnecessary distraction, a refusal to adapt to the current political realities, and a choice that undermines the spirit of unity. Gwede Mantashe, speaking on the sidelines of the event, sought to put the matter into perspective. He reminded the country that leadership is not permanent and that one of the hardest yet most important tasks of those who once held high office is learning to let go. In his words, one of the things that are important when you're in leadership is to let go when there's a new leader. By stressing this, Mantashe underscored his belief that institutions are always bigger than individuals and that South Africa's focus must remain on solving its national challenges, rather than being consumed by the personal views or decisions of past leaders. His statement carried a tone of respect but also firmness. While Mbeki's voice is valuable, the nation cannot afford to stall because one figure chooses not to participate. This is not the first time South Africa has found itself at the crossroads between respecting the contributions of former leaders and prioritizing the authority of current leadership. Historically, the ANC has always prided itself on continuity, often repeating the phrase that the organization is bigger than any single person. Yet, the shadow of past leaders has always loomed large. Nelson Mandela was seen as a unifying figure, while Mbeki himself once clashed with his successor Jacob Zuma in ways that created deep divisions in the party and the country. Zuma's own legacy, controversial as it is, still plays a role in how people view the ANC today. In this long history of tensions between past and present, Mbeki's boycott of the dialogue fits into a broader narrative of how former leaders continue to shape the political debate, even when they are no longer in office. For organizers of the convention, the absence of Mbeki was a setback but not a collapse. NEDLAC officials were quick to confirm that all other invited groups were present and actively participating. Political parties, labor organizations, and faith-based movements continued their deliberations, insisting that the momentum of the dialogue could not be derailed. The ANC delegation, which included Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula, Treasurer-General Gwen Ramakopa, National Spokesperson Malenji Bengumatsiri, and David Makura, head of the political subcommittee, also attended in full force. Their presence was meant to demonstrate the ruling party's seriousness about engaging in dialogue, and their speeches emphasized inclusion, renewal, and the need to put South Africa's future ahead of political squabbles. Analysts, however, are split on the long-term impact of Mbeki's boycott. Some argue that his absence could reduce the credibility of the dialogue, especially since he is not just a former leader, but one who has long positioned himself as a thinker and guardian of constitutional values. In their view, a dialogue without Mbeki lacks a certain moral weight. Others argue that his absence will soon be forgotten, since what matters more is the implementation of decisions rather than symbolic attendance. For them, Mantashe's words are a reminder that leaders must learn to step aside and allow new voices to take the reins. This clash of perspectives highlights the ongoing challenge of building trust and consensus in a society that remains deeply divided by history, inequality, and competing political visions. What makes this moment particularly significant is that it raises broader questions about the nature of leadership itself. Does influence fade when one leaves office, or does the moral authority of former leaders demand that they always have a say? Can the ANC and South Africa more broadly find a way to honor the contributions of its past leaders without allowing them to overshadow the present? These are not easy questions, but they lie at the heart of the tension we see playing out now. Mbeki's stand, whether you see it as principled or obstructive, is a reflection of how fragile South Africa's political consensus remains. Looking forward, much will depend on whether the National Dialogue Convention can produce tangible results. South Africans are weary of endless meetings and promises. They want to see real reforms in governance, job creation, service delivery, and the fight against corruption. If the dialogue is able to generate concrete outcomes, then Mbeki's absence may be remembered as a footnote rather than a defining blow. If, however, the convention fails to live up to its promises, critics will point back to his boycott as evidence that the process was flawed from the start. In this way, his absence becomes both a challenge and an opportunity. It forces the participants to prove that the dialogue has substance, not just symbolism. In the end, Gwede Mantashe's message carries a timeless truth about leadership. It is not just about seizing power, but also about knowing when to pass the baton. South Africa today needs both wisdom from its past and boldness from its present leaders. Balancing these forces is not easy, but it is necessary if the nation is to move forward. The National Dialogue Convention may not solve everything, but it offers a chance to build bridges and foster cooperation. Whether it succeeds will depend not only on who attends, but on what is done with the ideas shared within its halls. What do you think about Mbeki's decision to stay away from the dialogue? Do you see it as an act of principle or a missed opportunity? And more importantly, can South Africa find unity without the participation of all its former leaders? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth political analysis and updates on South Africa's unfolding journey. Your voice matters.